Okay, so today we're going deep on a pretty wild aviation mystery, and one that you actually sent to us.
Yeah.
So this is the disappearance of Frederick Valentich
Mm,
back in 1978.
right.
Now, he was flying over Bass Strait, this young Australian pilot, and just vanished.
Yeah. Just gone.
But it's his final radio transmissions that really make this case stand out.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, he describes this,
It's bizarre.
yeah, it's bizarre, this unknown aircraft.
Yeah.
I mean, it's way more unsettling than just a missing plane, you know?
It's definitely not your average disappearance.
No, not at all. So we really want to dig into the facts here, look at all the theories, and try to understand why this case still has people talking all these years later.
It really captures the imagination, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah, you've got like the nuts and bolts of aviation, and then this whole enigma of the unexplained, and right at the center is this story of a young guy with big dreams, and then a flight that goes very, very wrong.
Right, and that young guy was Frederick Valentich. Let's start there. So he was just 20 years old, based in Melbourne.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly loved flying. He had about 150 hours of flight time under his belt,
Right.
but still pretty new to it all, you know?
Yeah, relatively inexperienced, for sure.
But here's the thing that I find so interesting, and you pointed this out in the stuff you sent, is that Valentich was really into UFOs.
Oh, yeah, big time.
And he didn't hide it either. He
Yeah.
talked about it all the time.
Openly. Yeah.
He wanted to be a commercial pilot. That was his goal.
Yeah.
But he had hit a few bumps in the road.
Okay.
Like he'd actually failed some of his aviation tests.
Ah, interesting.
And that detail about the failed tests, I don't know, maybe it suggests some underlying anxiety or, maybe he pushed himself too hard.
Yeah, could be. I mean, it definitely suggests a young man who was ambitious,
Oh, yeah.
but maybe also felt some pressure.
Right.
And that could be really important when we look at what happened that night.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, so let's set the scene. It's October 21st, 1978.
Okay.
It's around 6:11 p.m., and Valentich takes off.
All right.
He's in his Cessna 182L, and he's heading from Melbourne to King Island.
Okay.
And King Island is this pretty remote spot in the Bass Strait,
Right out there.
and this is where we hit our first really strange detail, something that just doesn't add up. He told people he was going to pick up crayfish.
Crayfish.
Yeah, but there was no arrangement for this.
Oh, really? So, like, no one was expecting him?
No one. Nobody. And, you highlighted this in your notes, the fact that his reason for flying is unclear.
Yeah. It's a big red flag, isn't it?
It is. It's one of the biggest mysteries in this whole thing.
It just makes you wonder, what was he really doing out there?
Exactly. Now, the weather was clear that night.
Okay.
Good visibility. No problems there.
Hmm.
He was flying over water, away from any populated areas.
So a routine flight then?
On paper,
Yeah.
totally routine. But then,
Something happened.
big time. At 7:06 p.m.,
Okay.
Valentich radios Melbourne flight service.
Right.
And he reports that he's got an unknown aircraft following him.
Uh-oh.
And this thing is moving fast.
Okay, not just another plane passing by.
No. This is where his description gets really strange. Right. He starts talking about 4 bright lights.
4?
Yeah, he says it's got this shiny metallic surface.
Metallic? Huh?
And he says it's moving in ways that a normal aircraft just couldn't.
That's when the alarm bells start ringing.
Yeah, this is where things go from routine to totally bizarre.
It's a turning point, for sure.
Yeah.
Got this pilot, he's interested in UFOs.
Right.
He's up in the air and sees something he can't explain. It's not just some everyday thing,
It's not a bird. It's not a plane.
Exactly. It's immediately something more than just your average aviation incident.
But we have to break down this radio transmission because it's the heart of this whole mystery.
Absolutely.
So Valentich describes the object as long,
Okay.
and he specifically says it has a green light.
A green light. Interesting.
Yeah, and he keeps saying it looks metallic, like all shiny on the outside.
Okay, that's pretty specific.
And then he says something that really threw me. He says that this thing seemed to be orbiting his Cessna.
Orbiting. Whoa, hold on. One aircraft orbiting another.
That's not how planes work.
That's not in any flight manual I've ever seen.
What did you think when you read that, especially the orbiting part?
It's just so strange. It's like he's describing something out of a movie.
I know.
The whole description is just so specific,
It is.
Long, shiny metallic, a green light, and then this crazy orbiting maneuver. I mean, planes just don't do that.
No, they don't.
The green light is interesting, too.
Yeah.
Well, planes have green navigation lights, but they're on the right wingtip.
Right.
The way he's talking about it makes it sound like it was something different, more noticeable, maybe in a weird spot. But the orbiting, that's really something else. It just screams unconventional aircraft or something even weirder. you know?
Yeah, something not of this world.
Maybe.
And then come his final words.
Oh, God.
These are the ones that send chills down my spine.
Okay.
I'm ready. He says, that strange aircraft is hovering on top of me again. It's hovering, and it's not an aircraft.
Wow. It's like he's realizing what he's seeing.
I know the emphasis on the word hovering.
Yeah.
And then that definitive statement, it's not an aircraft. It's like, even though he was into UFOs,
Right.
this was something beyond anything he could have imagined.
It broke through his understanding of technology.
Right, like he knew he was seeing something truly unknown.
It's powerful stuff.
It is. What do you think that last statement really means? It's not an aircraft.
It's like he's saying this thing defies everything he's ever learned about flight.
You know, I hadn't thought about it that way.
Yeah, and the repetition of hovering, it's not moving like a normal plane. It's just staying there.
Right, almost like it's observing him.
Yeah, like it's in control.
Yeah.
It really suggests that he's having this moment of profound realization, or maybe even fear.
Oh, absolutely. Fear of the unknown.
Yeah.
And the transmission doesn't just fade away.
What happens?
It cuts out abruptly.
Just like that.
But right before it goes silent, you hear this burst of metallic scraping sound.
Scraping, like metal on metal.
Yeah, and then silence. Complete silence.
That's so eerie.
I know those final sounds, they just add another layer of mystery.
It really makes you wonder what happened in those last moments.
Right. Was it a collision? Did his plane malfunction? What does that scraping mean?
We just don't know.
And then nothing. No more Frederick Valentich.
So what happened next?
Well, as soon as that radio went dead, a huge search and rescue operation was launched.
Okay, makes sense.
The Australian Air Force and Navy were all in.
Wow, they pulled out all the stops?
They did. For 7 days, they searched the Bass Strait.
7 days.
Using planes, ships, helicopters, you name it.
And
Nothing. They found absolutely nothing.
wreckage.
No wreckage, no debris, no oil slicks.
And no Valentich.
Nothing.
Yeah.
It's like he and the Cessna just vanished into thin air.
Wow. That's really unusual, isn't it? I mean, even in accidents over water, you usually find something.
You do. Debris floats, currents carry things.
Exactly.
But in this case, there was no physical evidence whatsoever.
That just makes it so much harder to explain, doesn't it?
It does. It makes those typical explanations like pilot error a lot less convincing.
You're right. It throws a real wrench in the works.
Now, there was one little glimmer of hope a few years later.
Okay, what happened?
In 1983, a piece of aircraft wreckage washed up on Flinders Island.
Flinders Island.
Yeah. And it was similar to a Cessna 182.
Oh, wow.
So, of course, everyone thought this could be it. This could be the breakthrough.
I bet.
But they could never definitively link it to Valentich's plane.
Oh, so close.
I know. It was so frustrating, like finding a piece of a puzzle, but it's from a completely different puzzle.
Right. It's like a false lead.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A classic example of a tantalizing clue that leads nowhere.
Yeah. It's a reminder that this mystery is far from solved.
So let's talk theories.
Okay, let's get into it.
We've got to try and make sense of what happened.
Great.
The official explanation, the one that the authorities lean towards,
What is it?
it's pilot error and a crash.
Pilot error. Okay, so the argument there is that Valentich, being relatively new to flying over water at dusk when it's hard to see the horizon, he might have become disoriented, spatially disoriented.
Right. And for those who don't know, spatial disorientation is basically when a pilot loses their sense of up and down.
It can happen so easily, especially over water.
And there's even a theory that based on his flight path, he might have been flying upside down at some point without even realizing it.
Whoa, that's scary.
It is.
Yeah.
But here's the thing that always makes me question this whole pilot error thing.
What's that?
Valentich was calm and coherent for most of that radio transmission.
Yeah, he sounded pretty collected.
And he was describing this external object, this thing that was acting so strangely.
Right.
If he was so disoriented that he was about to crash, wouldn't his transmissions be more jumbled? Wouldn't he be more panicked?
You'd think so. I mean, his focus wouldn't be on describing something else so clearly.
Exactly. It's a big hole in that theory for me.
It doesn't quite fit, does it?
It doesn't. And then, of course, we have the UFO theory.
Ah, yes, the classic.
Right, this is the one that says Valentich really did encounter a genuine UFO. I mean, he described it firsthand. He saw this hovering, glowing object.
Right.
And he very clearly said, it's not an aircraft.
Right.
And on top of that, you have other reports of UFO sightings in the same area that same night.
Really?
Yeah. And maybe the most compelling piece of evidence is that radar operators apparently picked up an unknown object near his plane right before he disappeared.
Oh, wow. So it wasn't just him.
It wasn't just him on the radar?
That's pretty big.
I think so. But as with all things UFO, there are counter-arguments.
Of course.
We don't have that undeniable photo or video.
Smoking gun.
Right, we're relying on his word and those radar blips, which could be explained away.
Right, radar can be tricky.
Skeptics will always say it could have been a misidentified plane or some weird weather phenomenon.
Yeah, you can't rule those out completely.
But his description was so strange, so specific.
It's true. It doesn't sound like your average misidentification.
Another theory that's been floated is that Valentich staged his own disappearance.
Staged. Like
No.
he faked it.
Yeah, remember how his reason for flying to King Island was so weak?
The crayfish, yeah.
That's what makes people think maybe he had another agenda.
Okay, so maybe he wanted to disappear and start a new life somewhere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the whole UFO story was just a cover.
Interesting. But wouldn't he have left some kind of clue?
That's the thing, he didn't.
Really?
No note, no message to his family, no indication that he was planning to vanish.
So no goodbye, no explanation.
Nothing. And everyone who knew him said he was happy. He had no reason to run.
And he loved flying.
He did. So why would he use a plane to fake his death? It just doesn't add up.
Yeah, that's a tough one to swallow.
And then we come to the most out there theory.
Hit me with it.
Alien abduction.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, this one is big in the UFO community.
Of course.
They say that Valentich and his Cessna were taken by aliens.
Okay, so what's their evidence?
Well, they point to his description of something not like an aircraft.
Right.
The metallic sounds at the end of the transmission.
Okay.
And the fact that he vanished without a trace.
It's definitely a dramatic story.
It is. But it's all speculation.
There's no proof.
None.
Right.
It's a way to fill in the gaps when we don't have any other good explanation.
I get it. It's the ultimate unknown.
Right. But just because something is unexplained doesn't mean it's aliens.
Exactly. We have to be careful not to jump to conclusions.
Agreed. But you can't deny the Valentich case has had a huge impact on popular culture.
Oh, absolutely.
It's one of the most famous UFO cases out there.
And it's easy to see why.
Right? You've got a trained pilot reporting this bizarre encounter as it's happening.
In real time.
And then he disappears.
Yeah.
It's a story that fits perfectly into the whole UFO narrative.
It's tailor-made for it.
It is. And the official stance on this whole thing is telling.
What did they say?
Australia's Department of Transport officially classifies the case as cause unknown.
Cause unknown. So they're admitting they don't know what happened.
They are. It's the ultimate unsolved mystery.
Yeah, it really highlights how much we don't know about the world sometimes.
So as we wrap this up, what do you think are the two most likely scenarios?
The two most likely.
Even if we can't say for sure what happened to Valentich.
That's a tough one. But if I had to pick, I'd say it's either spatial disorientation leading to a crash
Okay.
or a genuine encounter with a UFO.
Okay, so the classic explanations.
Yeah, basically, we know spatial disorientation is a real danger for pilots.
Especially in those conditions.
Right. But it doesn't completely explain his detailed descriptions of that object.
Right.
And then the UFO theory, it fits with his observations and the radar reports.
Yeah.
But we're missing that hard proof.
We are. It would be amazing if some new evidence surfaced.
Imagine that.
Like, what if they found the wreckage?
Wow, that would change everything.
It would. It might point us towards a crash.
It might, or it might show us something completely unexpected.
Maybe there's damage that doesn't make sense.
Right, like something from another world.
And who knows, maybe with new technology, we could find the plane down there in the Bass Strait.
Yeah, sonar technology is getting better all the time.
It is. Maybe one day we'll be able to map the ocean floor with enough detail to spot it.
That would be incredible.
I think the reason this case stays with people is because it's just so unsettling.
It's got that creep factor, for sure.
You've got this pilot reporting something truly strange as it's happening, and then poof, he's gone.
And those metallic sounds at the end?
I know, they're so haunting.
It's like a door slamming shut on the mystery.
It is.
Yeah.
And we're left with this gaping hole of unanswered questions.
It makes you wonder what else is out there.
It does. It makes you question everything.
You've got a credible witness, a bizarre story, and no explanation. It's a recipe for a mystery that never dies.
It is. It taps into that human need to know, to make sense of the world.
And when we can't, it just makes the mystery even more fascinating.
Well, thank you for taking this deep dive with me.
It's been my pleasure. I always love a good mystery.
And to you, our listener, thank you for sending us this case. It's one that will stay with us for a long time.
I'm sure it will.
We've talked about Frederick Valentich's background, his last words, all the theories, but what do you think, what piece of information is missing?
Oh, that's a good question.
What could finally crack this case wide open? Is it something about Valentich himself? Is it a piece of technology that could find the plane? Or is it something else entirely, something we haven't even thought of yet?
It's a real head-scratcher.
It is.
No.
Let us know what you think. Keep the conversation going.
Absolutely.
Until next time when we dive into another mystery.